This is the 7.2-notes. Your objective is that you can multiply polynomials. Alright, so what we're going to start off with is we are going to be starting off with some distributive property, the FOIL method. Personally, this is kind of one of my favorite, but we're going to be actually showing you guys a couple different ways how to do this. So in exercises 1 through 3, we're going to use the distributive property, also called FOIL, to find the product. So in number 1, we have x plus 4, x plus 5. And so what we do with this is we use what's called FOIL. And FOIL stands for first, outside, inside, last. And you might be going, alright, cool, FOIL stands for that, but what does that actually mean? And I'm actually going to kind of color code these. So first, outside, inside, I'll use this blue on the far right, last. Just move this over so it's a little easier. Okay. So, when I have this x plus 4, x plus 5, we're first going to do the inside. And what I mean by, or the first ones, and what I mean by that is when I look in the parentheses, it's the first object in the parenthesis. And so I'm going to go this x times this x. And so we get x squared. Then we're going to do the outside. And you can kind of think of these as the outside being on the outside of the equation. And so we do this x times this 5, and we get a positive 5x. Then we go and we do the inside, and we go from 4 to x, and so I get a positive 4x. And then I go to the last ones, which are the last ones in the parentheses, and so it's 4 and 5, and so that gives me a positive 20. Some people also call this the clamshell method. Some people call this the rainbow method, because if you do all of this at the top, there's just like a bunch of lines that are arching over. I just call it FOIL because that's how most people are going to refer to it in the future. Now that I've done that, I'm going to combine like terms. And so I go, okay, is there any other x squareds? No. Alright, so I got x squared. Is there any other x's? No, there's not. Or, well, there's this 5x and there's this 4x. So I'm going to combine those. I'm going to say, is there any other? No, there's not. So I'm going to go plus 9x. And then I have the 20. I'm going to say, is there anything else without a variable? Nope. Alright, so plus 20. And so that's my final answer. Alright, let's look at number 2. Number 2 is x plus 1, x minus 6. Alright, so again, we're going to be using FOIL. And make it all caps because it's an acronym. FOIL. So, first, outside, inside, last. Alright, so I'm going to start with my first one. So x and x, because they're both first, gives me x squared. Outside, x and negative 6x, or negative 6, gives me negative 6x. Some people might be wondering why I don't do x negative 6, because then that would look like x minus 6, which is not what's happening. And so you kind of put your variable at the end after your coefficient, or after the number that you know. Alright. First, outside, okay, inside, so the 1 and the x makes it plus 1x. And then my last, the 1 and the negative 6, makes negative 6. And you might be wondering, does it actually really matter the order that you're doing this in? In all reality, no, it doesn't. But you need to make sure that you kind of distribute each one individually. So everything should have multiplied by everything. And just following this FOIL, though, definitely makes it a lot easier. So I have x squared because I have this x squared and there's no one else. I have this negative 6x rather than any other x's. Yeah, there's a plus 1, so that gives me negative 5x. And then I have a minus 6. And that's my answer for that. All right. Number 3, we have x minus 2, x minus 7. So I'm going to use FOIL. Alright, so my first one is the x and the x, so that gives me x squared. The x and the negative 7 gives me negative 7x. The negative 2 and the x makes negative 2x. The negative 2 and the negative 7 is positive 14. Did the first, outside, inside, last, or really I made sure that I distributed the x to everything and the negative 2 to everything. So I get x squared minus 9x plus 14. Alright, the next one that we're going to do, exercises 4 through 6, we're going to use the table, also known as the box method, to find the product. Alright, and reality is, whatever one works for you, we just do that. So my equation is y plus 4 and y, oops, not x, y plus 2, 2. And so, there's the FOIL method, but there's also another method called the box method. And what we're going to do is we're going to be making a box with this. And so I kind of take each term and I set it up. And so I have this y, and I have this positive 4. I have this y, and I have this positive 2. And what we do is we make a little table. And you might be thinking, man, this just seems like a lot more work. But whenever we get to kind of more complex ones, this can be really handy to kind of help keep your thoughts together. So I go, okay, y and y makes y squared. The 4 and the y makes 4y. The y and the 2 makes 2y. The 4 and the 2 make 8, or positive 8 really is what I need to know. And now I combine like terms, so I get y squared. 4 and 2 make 6y, and 8 makes 8. Number 5. If I go q plus 4 and q minus 7, using the box method, I'm going to go, okay, q, I'm going to spread this out a little bit because that one was a little tight. And 4, q, negative 7, q and q make q squared, q and negative 7 makes negative 7q, 4 and q makes 4q, 4 and negative 7 make negative 28. Combine like terms, and we get q squared. 4q and negative 7q is negative 3q. 7 and 4, and then negative 28. You don't even have to do the math anymore once you get these. That's your answer. Number 6. And if you wanted to, you could have made boxes with this. Make it look nicer. Alright. Number 6, we got 2x minus 3 and x minus 1. Alright, so I got 2x, I got negative 3, I have x, I have negative 1. So 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times negative 1 is negative 2x. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. Negative 3 times negative 1 is positive 3. Okay, we're going to combine like terms. So I get 2x squared. Negative 3 and negative 2 makes negative 5x plus 3. Alright, number 7 asks us to describe and correct the error and find the product of the binomial. So they have x minus 2, 5 minus x, And when the person wrote it out, they went, okay, x and 5, x and negative 2, and so they got x squared and 5x and negative 2x and negative 10. So they got that x squared plus 3x minus 10, because they did x squared, negative 2 and 5 makes positive 3, negative 10 is negative 10. So where'd they go wrong? Well, where they went wrong is right here. They didn't show that correctly in this location. It should have been negative x, and it should have been, and it should actually just should have been negative x. Otherwise, they had it set up right, and then they would have multiplied and they would have gotten it right. All right, let's keep going. My page. All right. In number 8, find the product using any method. So I want you to go ahead and take a moment and try and solve this on your own. I'm only going to, I'll alternate between foil and box as I go through. But like it says, you could choose your method. The reason I'll alternate is just so that you can kind of see how it works. But go ahead and pause this video and give it a shot. Especially maybe just do 8, try it, and then resume and see if that works. Alright, so let's see. I'll start with foil. So y and y makes y squared. Y and negative 3 makes negative 3y. Negative 6 and y makes negative 6y. Negative 6 and negative 3 makes positive 18. Combine like terms and I get y squared minus 9y plus 18. Alright. Number 9, q plus 1/2, q minus 3/2. Alright, go ahead and pause. Try and do it on your own. I'm going to be doing the box method. Alright, so q and 1/2, q and negative 3/2. So I got q squared, 1/2 q, negative 3/2 q, negative 3 over 4. So I get q minus 2 over 2q minus 3 over 4. This reduces down to, actually 2 over 2 is just 1. So, yeah. Regardless of the method, you should be getting the same answer. Alright, number 10. We have 2 minus 5t, and we have 7 minus t. I'll do the foil on this one. Go ahead and give it a shot. You can use either method. Alright, 2 times 7 is 14. Oops, different color. 2 times negative t is negative 2t. Negative 5t times 7 is negative 35t. Negative 5t and negative 5 makes positive 5t squared. Alright, I need to write this in standard form. So I start with my 5t squared. Negative 2t minus 35t is negative 37t. And this is a positive 14. Alright, hopefully you got those right. In exercises 11 and 12, we're going to write a polynomial that represents the area of the shaded region. Alright, so for number 11, if you don't have the note packet for some reason, is 4x plus 10. And 2x minus 3. This is a right angle, and this is all filled in the middle. So we need to find the area of this triangle. So the area of a triangle, is given to us by the equation 1/2 BH, 1/2 the base times the height. And so what we have here is we have 1/2 times the base, which is 2x minus 3, and the height, which is 4x plus 10. So we're going to kind of distribute. And so whenever we're doing this, and this one kind of seems a little more difficult because we have it kind of all spread out, you kind of get to take your choice of what you want to do. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just use the FOIL method and then just divide everything by 2. So I'm going to go, okay, 2x times 4x is 8x squared. 2x times 10 is positive 20x. Negative 3 times 4x is negative 12x. And then negative 3 times 10 is negative 30. But what I need to remember, and what I probably need to include, is at the beginning I have this 1/2. And so at this point you could apply it, or you could keep it if you wanted to, until you got, alright, 8x squared, this makes plus 8x minus 30. Now we need to do half of everything, so we get 4x squared plus 4x minus 15. Okay. Number 12, we're given a rectangle. And we have x plus 6, and I have 3x minus 8. The area of a square, rectangle, is given by base times height. So we have 3x minus 8, x plus 6. From there, we can use the table method, or you can use FOIL, whichever way you kind of like. And so I got 3x and a minus 8. And I got x and a 6. So 3x and x makes 3x squared. X and negative 8 makes negative 8x. 6 and 3x makes 18x. 6 and negative 8 makes negative 48. So I got 3x squared. 18x minus 8x is plus 10x, and then negative 48. Okay. Alright, 13 through 15, they asked us to find the product. So number 13, I have x plus 2, x squared plus 5x plus 1. And so this suddenly looks different because all the other ones before this have been 2 sets of binomial terms, so binomial being 2. They all kind of looked like this x plus 2, but now we suddenly have 3 in one of these, and that can be a little concerning. But depending on your method, you just have to adapt. Let's start with the box method. So I'm going to go x, and I'm going to have 2, and this is going to go all the way across, and you're going to kind of see why I made it a little longer, in that I'm going to be placing x squared here, 5x, and 1. And so I'm just kind of separating them out so that then I can actually do this. And now I multiply kind of like I was doing before. So x times x squared is x to the third. X times 5x is 5x squared. X times 1 is x. Now I do 2. 2 and x squared is 2x squared. 2 and 5x is 10x. 2 and 1 is 2. Now I'm going to combine like terms. And so I got x cubed, because there's only x cubed. I have 2x squared and 5x squared. That makes 7x squared. I have 10x and x, so that makes 11x. And there's a 2. Alright, let's try another one. And with this one, let's try the FOIL method. X plus 5, y squared plus 2y minus 6. Now, FOIL doesn't really accurately describe this. The way that you can kind of re-say this now is the distributive method. And so what that means is we just need to make sure that we distribute to everything. Oh, this shouldn't have been an X, that was a Y. I was like, why is that different? Okay. I could have done that, but this makes it a little nicer. So what I'm going to be doing is, I won't really be able to use my pens, but you can kind of see it. Maybe I'll actually just use them to see it. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to start with y. And so I'm going to go y times y squared. And so that's y cubed. And then I go y times 2y. And so that gives me 2y squared. And then I go y times negative 6, and I get negative 6y. Now I'm going to start the same thing over with the 5. So I go 5 times y squared, that's positive 5y squared. I go 5 times positive 2y, so that gives me positive 10y. And then I go 5 times negative 6, and so that gives me negative 30. Now I'm going to combine like terms. So I got y cubed, this is the only y cubed, so I got y cubed. I got 2y squared, I have a 5y squared, so plus 7y squared. Negative 6y and positive 10y, that gives me 4y, positive 4y. And then I have negative 30. Number 15, I have h minus 7 and h squared minus 3h plus 2. I guess I'll use the box method because I did FOIL style the distributive last time. So h and negative 7, h squared minus 3h plus 2. H and h squared makes h cubed. H and negative 3/8 makes negative 3h squared. H and 2 is 2h. Negative 7 and h squared is negative 7h squared. Negative 7 and negative 3h is 21h. Negative 7 and 2 is negative 14. Combine like terms, there's only this h cubed. Negative 7h squared and negative 3h squared makes negative 10h squared. 21h and 2h makes 23h, positive 23h. And then I have minus 14. Okay. And that wraps up the notes. Check with your instructor on what your assignment is. Have a good one.